Uh-huh. And then we start farming with 2 quarters and a 40. And farmed 10 years with 200 acres of cropland and 160 acres of prairie. And we were ready to fold her up. And then my father-in-law bought me that quarter, that Kretschmer land. Then it worked. Then we could make her go. This I gotta tell you, Jenny, you know, when we started out, we only had 1 bedroom, and we had just what do you call it, a lounge or a...
How did you open up?
A deal that you open up and made a bed. That's what we had. It was small. But it tell you what, Jenny, it worked. Come on. Milked 10, 15 cows by hand. And I did a lot of this milking. Yeah. My younger days. And I hated that, milking.
So how did you just tie them up?
They had they had a chain, light chain, and a swivel, and a crib, and every cow got tied up with a chain.
Okay.
At that time, when I grew up, when we
with the
we
cow
had
chains,
extensions.
with the cow chains.
You remember.
We have cow chains out there with a cow.
Yeah, they hook the cow and put the chain.
Yeah,
You know, if I ever find one out there, a cow chain, I'll show you.
Yeah, I know. I know.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what a cow.
Yeah, must be something out there.
Oh, I know.
But Jenny, you never seen a cow chain. And you had to tie them up by each cow. And then milk cows, they were channeled. You could walk in and pet them. But you milked them in the udder. But the heifers, to break them, they kicked. Don't think for a minute they didn't kick.
So you did all the chores when you grew up. I mean, you name it, you did it. Feed, plow, seed, thresh.
Yeah. Now I'm still around.
What was your least favorite thing? Milking the cows?
No, with horses, you know, riding saddle horse, rounding up the cattle and stuff like that. But I never did care for milking and stuff like that.
I got.
You went to school. It was all in English. Did they do any in
That was in English, and you know, when I went to school, I gotta tell you, I couldn't speak a word English, all German. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Ja. I schlag you on the buggy, you fly on the ground. That's German, Jenny. You understand?
So when you went to school, you couldn't speak any English?
That was the hardest thing. Nowadays, children, if they learn English, right, that's half of the school.
Yeah.
Some teachers were like that when you were in there a couple of years. You had it right, I must talk English.
Well, if you talk
100
German
times.
on the school ground,
Oh, even on the school ground, you couldn't talk German.
you were supposed to talk English.
The teachers didn't know German and they didn't want you to say.
But you did anyway.
You did it anyway. So the weather, how is the weather like it is today? It was colder and drier?
That time it was cold, the winter time, and cold, and lots of snow. When November comes, December, never had no more vehicles about the sled and the horses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mark, that time the roads was a bad, just the roads. So rut whole back, just the section lines. You know how them section lines, no roads. That's the way the roads were that time.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
You should remember, you know, even the horses and the cows, manure was used. They had to be hauled out with that high piles, got that. Was it especially in the spring, you'd
Oh,
walk around.
and then this is another deal.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. For fire, for like
Yeah.
coal, they made they cleaned out the calf shed and stuff. They made a bit like 50 by 50, and then they had the horses, 4 horses in the middle, and then you had a rope to lead them around, so they would tramp that manure, straw together. Then later on, when it was dry, you cut it with the shovel, and you stacked it up so it would dry. In the winter time, you burned that for, instead of coal, burned that for that manure.
And straw.
And that gave such dirt, and when it dry, you know how manure, when it dries, dust, sometimes there was wind. Oh, there was, when you had to take it down to the house, or bring it up too close to the house, so in the wintertime you could stack it up. If you didn't have a basement, stack it up inside the house so you could burn that manure in the wintertime. And from that manure, there were ashes, say Jenny. And then, be careful. He took out the ashes, you know, with the shovel, and that fine stuff that went up.
So that's how you heated the house in the winter? That's how...
Yeah.
If you didn't... So what was your favorite thing to do when you were a teenager then? You graduated 8th grade. Then what did you do when you were a teenager? Just
Went
work?
down to show, and if you had $1, you know, for the show was a quarter or so, and the popcorn was 10, pop was 5 or 10, 5 cents. Then the $1 was gone.
Yeah.
That's all you had. And you're lucky some nights you didn't have $1 some weeks. You had to stay home.
To get to town in the car, or how did you...
I hitchhiked most of the time I did. My dad didn't give me the car.
It was so close to the highway.
Besides the highway, I went out there and I flagged the car down to pick me up, and I hitchhiked home again, and I got by.
Yeah.
Never got in trouble.
Never got in trouble?
Never got in any trouble.
Who picked you up? It was mostly people
Mostly anybody that they picked you up.
I mean, it was people.
Even one time the High Patrol picked me up. Johnny Klein was his name. Can you imagine? That's about 50, 60 years ago. I still remember. He was a young patrolman. Stopped and picked me up. And I thanked him.